everybody, and welcome from a slightly chilly Pretoria in South Africa. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tian. I am the Chief Sales Officer of Retro Rabbit Smartboxx 21. And joining me is Lisle, who will give us an introduction of herself and tell us a little bit about herself before I get us going.
Okay, thanks so much, Tian, and thanks everyone for joining us today for what I know is going to be a very interesting conversation about AI. My name is Lisle Jenneke. I'm the AI Solutions Client Account Manager for Retro Rabbit Smartboxx 21. And just for interest sake, my background is I've spent the last 6 years assisting businesses with implementing customized AI solutions globally, and I hope to be able to offer some of those services to you guys going forward.
Thanks. Lisle. For those of you who've met us before or are following us, you would notice that Retro Rabbit Smartboxx 21 has developed a little bit in the last couple of months. For the new people, I'll tell you a little bit more about our business. Retro Rabbit Smartboxx 21 is an international software consultancy, a boutique consultancy, we'd like to think about it. We're based in 3 continents across the globe. So we've got operations here in South Africa, in Pretoria, in the United States, and also in India. Our core business has basically been the same over the last 20 years. So in a large part, we are a software development business. We also do UI, UX design, managed services, and in cases like that, we look after operations for our clients around security operations, the development of solutions, testing, test automation, and all of that. From a focus perspective, our client base are predominantly in the financial services sector, so banking and insurance. We've got clients in travel and leisure, telco, but basically across all verticals. So we're about 600 odd consultants in those disciplines, and we roll out to the market globally. So very exciting business we're in. If you follow us on LinkedIn or any of our social media, you'll see there are regular updates about how our business is growing and expanding. So it's quite an exciting time for us at this point. One of the unique aspects of our business is that over the years we have developed our own accelerators, our own solutions that we deploy at clients to improve our own performances. So this comprises obviously our know-how, our experience, our people's experience, coupled with some technology and process that we execute on, which then makes it possible for us to actually be more effective at our clients. We have now in a space where we actually roll this out to our clients as well in terms of an offering. And one of these we are talking about today, which is our AI accelerators. So the topic for today is around aligning our strategy with real market impact. So how we actually go about doing and delivering our AI value proposition at clients. And it's quite topical, I'm sure you guys will agree. So through the session today, I'm going to quiz Lisle a little bit about how we go about doing that and what the benefits are. So as a core takeaway, I think at this stage, we would like to talk about how your AI strategy is solving some of your pain points, some key execution considerations, Smartboxx, our accelerator, and how this rapid deployment model assists our clients. And then I think we'll wrap up around some of the trends and opportunities. So with that in mind, maybe I'll start us off with talking a little bit about the strategy. So I think most companies today has AI somewhere on their agenda, and they've placed a bet on AI. But we see an equal amount of companies basically spinning their wheels, for lack of a better word, in those projects. And I have to start wondering then, why is that? I overheard a conversation the other day, and I wasn't eavesdropping, but I heard a conversation between 2 people around a strategy, and it wasn't necessarily an AI strategy because I caught the conversation later on. But one asked the other and said, well, have you got a digital strategy? And I was almost like taken aback. I thought, aren't all strategies digital nowadays? Exactly. And the next thought was, surely then AI falls into the same bracket, because I fail to think that there's a world out there where people are not thinking about how technologies and evolving technologies such as AI can help. The next thing that struck me then around that strategy was, is it transformational by nature? So due to our DNA, we work on a lot of transformational projects, as you know. But then I start thinking about people making statements around AI is going to transform our business. And I don't think that always rings true, because a bank will be a bank, an insurance company will be an insurance company, a retailer will be a retailer. So we're not going to change the way they do business and how they promote themselves. But what AI is definitely going to do for you is improve your ability to execute on your business objectives. And I think that's where companies need to think about their strategy. Why is it that we're doing it? Are we only doing it because our competitors are doing it? Or are there real, opportunities for us to improve how we go about that? So I think with that in mind, maybe I want to ask Lisle if you would tell us a little bit more about what areas of a business's operations do you think are prime candidates for AI innovation?
Okay, thanks, Tian, and I totally agree with you. Strategy isn't just about having strategy for its own sake or technology for its own sake. It is about, deep insight into, what it is that you're trying to solve, right? So in terms of, like from an execution piece, it's also, it's always considering, where can the most value be added or derived in the shortest amount of time? So, we're looking at, in terms of AI, a very interesting contingency around traditional IT systems is that, you're looking for things to be faster, more cost effective, and obviously more valuable for both your leaders, your teams, and your customers. So, traditionally a strategy that makes sense is one that will make sense today from that point of view. And that is, I wouldn't say low-hanging fruit, but let's be honest, there's still a lot of manual processes within large organizations and small organizations. But in terms of scale, let's look at where the volume play is in terms of, if I can fix this problem today, I'll be able to greatly accelerate a portion of my business. So I think it's always valuable to stick to exactly what you said and say, look, I'm still a bank, I'm still an insurer, I'm still a telco. What is my overhanging strategy? Because that's what should inform an AI implementation or AI capability play anyway, right? And where are my business leaders complaining the most? Where is my team experiencing, the most difficult challenges? And then we can start a conversation, because ultimately AI is about, it's about efficacy. It's about an implementation of a technology. Even today, we're still seeing AI implementation struggling in the same way that traditional IT digital transformation strategies suffered, which is about a 20% idea to production or to market kind of success rate, which we believe is still pretty low. Yeah. And I think we can be, it can be a lot higher. But yeah, in terms of strategy, it's about your business at the end of the day. What we offer is just the ability to strategically move that pain point forward so that it's solved. And we can do that quite rapidly.
All right. And in your opinion, are there any areas that stand out above others that are prime candidates for AI revolution?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely stuff that is, well, I don't want to say it's low-hanging fruit. We're certainly not selling fruit. Okay, some people are, but in this instance, it's volumes. Where are you experiencing large volumes that are manually processed? So in terms of the use cases that we've seen land really, really well and really produce amazing results is things like contact center. So you're handling a lot of calls. You're handling thousands of calls. And you've got a contact center, a group of agents that have varying levels of capability, potentially interest. And also there's a lot of manual stuff going on. So you're asking for a one-on-one engagement between a contact center agent and a customer or a potential customer. That one-on-one engagement can now be significantly augmented and enriched through our AI technologies. So in one particular large insurer that we work with right now, they've been able to take their contact center interactions from 40% coverage to 100% coverage. So they now know exactly what's going on in those calls. And that means they can look at, the performance lens is one piece. But what's super interesting to me is they can also look at what data is being exchanged in that conversation. Is the data matching customer records? We can flag that now really, really quickly. And we can also recommend actions and, give business leaders and team leaders the decision-making ability that they might not have seen before because they simply couldn't listen to every single one of those calls. And of course, we've also got the fraud angle. So there's a lot of bang for your buck that you get from one simple implementation. I think that's probably the most interesting use case that we have right now.
Thanks, Lisle. I think I want to know more about some of those learnings we've had and experiences we've had, but I'm going to take it back a little bit in terms of this AI concept. So for me, I want to use an example, so I'm going to let you in on a little secret about Lisle. So when I met Lisle last year, she let me know that she quite likes classic cars. So I think it would be quite a nice example if we can draw a comparison between her love for classic vehicles and the AI. So for me, there are three parts, and for a moment, let's think about changing the engine in a car as a concept. The first part of it has to do with why are we doing it, which talks to the strategy part. So I think, in an obvious case, it's got to be increasing the horsepower or making the car go faster or whatever the objective is. But there has to be, what is it that we're looking to improve upon by deploying the technology? So, it's important for business to have that clear mindset around what are we looking to achieve when we take this project on. The second part of it for me has to do with tooling or tools then. So in the car world, then going back to my example, it would talk about having the right tools to actually, take the engine out, loosen the nuts, lift it out of the engine bay, decoupling it from the gearbox. So in the AI space, for me, it would talk around what tools do we have that we could leverage to do this. So this has got to do with large language models, the augmentation around that, so algorithms, data, infrastructure, and all those things. So you need to have a thinking and understanding of that. And then the most important part of it is you can have the strategy. So what is it that you're looking to achieve? You could have the tools, but you don't know how to do that.
Oh, you got me there.
Yeah, so, at the end of the day, I think that is where we see, at least the couple of times that I've seen projects that are ailing in this space and where they, and excuse the pun with spinning wheels, but where they're spinning their wheels, is that they don't know how to do that. How would you respond if you agree with that? Where do you think where are clients stuck in terms of the execution? What is it that Retro Rabbit does differently in that space to then future-proof those projects for the clients?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way of looking at it. And I mean, I will say that I'm probably more in terms of classic cars and changing engines on the strategy side. I just certainly know how to use a tool, but in what sequence, and definitely not working with an engine block, right, without an expert around. But yeah, look, so I think similarly, it's looking through what your capability is. Like, what are you really, really good at? I mean, my big dream for AI is that we're going to elevate most team members from where they are to become even better subject matter experts in that area. So in terms of implementation, it is tough also because there's a lot of hype. Right? I have not seen a hype around at IT technology for a really, really long time. And obviously, it's because we're digital. We're a lot more online, and you don't have to just be in tech to be online a lot of the time, right? We know that. We're all looking at our phones all day, engaging with tech. But the key remains is that I don't expect a business to have really high levels of AI capability around implementation just yet. Or even like a depth of understanding. And that's not any type of criticism. That's just where we are, right? It is a complex technology. It can take a while to understand. But I wouldn't expect a business leader either to be able to spending their time going deeply into what is behind an LLM, right? How does OCR really work, or computer vision? Sure, it's interesting topics. It's good to be curious about it. But we want people to maintain like where they are contributing the most value in that business, right? So in terms of the challenge, I'd also describe it as, we're very early in the adoption curve. So I'm not sure, people are familiar with the innovation adoption curve. You get your early adopters, and that's a percentage of the population. Once a technology goes over that percentage, it then goes basically into the mainstream market. And we've seen that recently with a number of things, whether it's internet, social media, etc. Right? It became a fire of its own. I think we're almost a little bit ahead of that curve right now, if I look at AI adoption, especially around LLMs and chatbots and things like that. Usage is super high. But here the thing is, it hasn't yet been truly translated into a business context. So I think most people would have experienced the chatbots and conversational AI, but I feel like very few people would have directly experienced what an AI technology in their space, in their business space, whether they're a member of a team or a team leader or a business leader, what that looks like in real life. So it's the translation portion. I mean, maybe that's the transformation, not so much on the technology space, but the understanding. Like, how do I deploy it? What should I deploy? How difficult is it really? Because a lot of people are going to say a lot of different things, And, in terms of the Smartboxx, like, it was designed in a way to really reduce the amount of friction across those pain points. to say, look, we can help you with explainability, but we can mostly help you with the implementation, because the sooner you get a use case, however large or small, to market, your teams are going to be able to experience what AI means in real life for them in business, right? How does it help their workflow? How is it helping their customers? How is it helping their teammates, right? Not just the opportunity to, instead of manually processing a document and looking for fraud and detecting tampering and authenticity, which could take an hour of your life. I mean, being able to say, with use cases we've deployed, that process now takes 3 seconds. I mean, it is a significant improvement on efficiency. And it actually, in terms of traditional IT systems, it is actually cheaper over the long term and faster to implement than what we've seen before, right? So it's a really interesting intersection between really high-powered technology and this implementation piece is where we're specializing to say we can take this to market really quickly. That means that the pain points and the friction around understanding starts to fall away, because you really only understand things when you are driving that classic car. Yeah. Why it's so cool. Not just the looks, but why it feels so good. To be using something that has really stood the test of time. Knowing that you're going to tweak and fiddle and improve over time, but essentially, it's still about getting to the destination that you want to get to.
Yeah. And I think you're right. You mentioned something which is really important in all of these projects, and for the financially minded people in the audience and joining the session, return on investment is always something that, if you're looking for budget, they want to know how much is it going to cost and how much can I expect as a return. So I think, how important is it that this is understood in the context of these AI projects? Because you mentioned 3 minutes going down to 3 seconds. I think with these projects, it is imperative that the clients understand what it costs them now. So when you look at the improvement, you can quantify that and say, well, this is what we achieved. Because technology, most people complain technology is expensive, but relative to what? Yeah.
Yes.
So do you see a lot of that in the projects?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, we're at this inflection point, right? And I think one of the transformations, again, is more, like I said, on understanding, we are going to measure success and cost around traditional IT systems. And I don't think that's the correct model to use going forward, right? We're looking at something that is significantly different in the way we think about work, the way we think about workflows. I mean, AI is a form of intelligence. I wouldn't say that it's any way approximating human intelligence, but it's able to do things a lot faster. It's able to perform tasks without as much of the rule-based systems that we're used to. So when we talked about automation, for example, in the past, you had to define the rules of how that automation worked, in incredible granular detail. If you didn't get the rules right, the outcome wasn't what you expected. If you missed a rule, your process isn't going anywhere. But with a layering intelligence on top of your business processes, you're able to leverage the idea that you can get this, this entity, this machine, this engine, to start thinking. And I'm not saying traditional human-based thinking, but being able to take data, right, in an unstructured form, and be able to generate or transform that data meaningfully in a human-based context. So you don't have to define all the rules up front. I mean, why LLMs are so successful in what they do is they've got a massive amount of training data. If you say, I want to produce a presentation for a client in the insurance industry, it's going to understand what a presentation is. It's going to understand what the industry is. So it's got a bunch of expectations that it can use in its background, in its training data, to leverage something that can happen in real time. And in a business context, you don't have to train a model or any AI system to understand. Like, if you say, process this document for me or extract this information, it's going to do it. You don't have to program every single line of code to get it to do that. It's going to know because of this massive knowledge base that it has in the background, while also running computation against, not only these massive data centers, but, at the speed of a CPU.
Sure.
So
you mentioned data a little bit, and I think that's, the learning happens with the vastness of data out there that the machines can learn on. This data aspect of AI, is it a competitive market space or not? I think, for instance, where we have some projects, it's within the confines of the client. So, the learning happens on data that's already there. It might not be in the shape or fashion that it should be for it to be consolidated and learned from. But how important is that data role for this project to succeed, or AI project to succeed? I mean, are we in a world where we can go and tap external data to enrich? You know, for me, when they started the AI journey, I thought about the learning will happen if you learn about data you didn't have or don't have. That's where the real learning is, because the bank knows most of my spending patterns, what I do and don't do, and how much debt I have and don't have and all that. So that data is known. But how many insights do they actually get from that? Or do they need to enrich that data with potentially external data? What does the world look like? Is that a likelihood? Could we get there? And you know, we've got things like proprietary data and data protection, which limits the client's ability to enrich data further than their relationship with you. Is that a possibility?
Definitely. Again, this is about looking at your data, I mean your business first of all, but definitely your data in a different way. You know, we're able to, you know, combine a bunch of AI technologies, for example, in a single use case to enrich all of that, the existing data, and surface information using, you know, augmented pieces of data within a data set really quickly and in really interesting ways. I think the best example I've heard is, you know, that there was a company in the US, they deployed an AI system that pulled in multiple data sources. And what they were able to surface was a report that they'd lost 10 years ago. By asking a question. It was kind of a question they asked of the data set and of the data engineers for a long time, and finally they were able to answer it because the AI itself, or at least the engine that, you know, was deriving this information, was able to say, I don't need the data to be in a particular format. I mean, it's advantageous in certain contexts. You want structured data, but the power here is to be able to take multiple data sources from almost anywhere in your business, and we're talking about like essentially data triage. So traditionally, a business unit would be focusing on the data about their customers in their space, using the IT systems that they need to leverage. But if you starting to look at, you know, a customer, for example, cross-organization, you know, an engine like Smartboxx can look at customer interactions everywhere, every part of that business. You know, customer touch points in terms of what kind of information we have about those customers is now cross-organization, almost instantly. So are you able to get more data into your system right now? Yes, you are, because of this unstructured data. Are we able to enrich it? Absolutely. I mean, the amount of insights that are coming out of the deployments that we have is quite amazing. Like, you know, even we're being surprised as much as our clients are being surprised by just how much more enriched information they're getting out of it. Because we can also say to an AI system, don't just aggregate information. Don't just make 1 + 1 = 2. What is the story? What is the narrative behind the data set that you have versus the questions I'm asking and the value that I'm trying to derive? And also can you give me more information that I may not have seen? Because, you know, as humans, we're incredible, but we're not built for everything. We're not built for perfect memory. Yeah. We shouldn't have. I mean, that would be frightening, quite frankly. But we're also not built to, I know, like every single pixel on a screen or every single data point. That's just not our forte. We're good at, at making decisions, you know, being creative, seeing what might happen next, testing things, right? You know, we're much more on the creative scale if we compare ourselves to computer systems. That being said, yeah, data has always been really important. And I'm not sure actually if, you know, if enriching the data set right now is where the opportunity lies. I think the opportunity is more so in deploying, you know, intelligent, you know, systems, you know, AI engines meaningfully, so that over time, as that AI system learns more about your organization, about your organizational behaviors, that it will start to enrich itself over time because it's learning more about you, and it can create more specificity over time. So this is also something we're very excited about with Smartboxx, is we can give you value today, but we know in 3, 6, 12 months' time, that engine is going to become smarter and smarter and smarter across your organizational data. So I feel the opportunity is not so much external enrichment, but actually processing enrichment. And, you know, having your SMEs as humans in the loop to say, you know, this is a good decision or a good recommendation, and this isn't. And immediately that engine's going to learn. Okay, cool, that wasn't great. Oh, that was really good. That was really important. Okay, let's keep doing that. Let's stop doing that. And that happens on a daily basis.
Okay. So you used 2 words that drew my attention in one sentence, and was deploy and quickly. And I think that's quite important in the context of what we're talking about. Do you maybe want to give me or give us a little bit of insight into, because that implies acceleration, by the way. So going back to motor vehicles and acceleration, that's an important part of the motor vehicle. But Do you want to maybe give us a little bit of insight about the components of Smartboxx and what it comprises and how we actually then use that acceleration to deploy the projects?
Yeah, I think, look, that for me is pretty much the crux of this, right? I mean, a lot of people are using the technology, that new AI technologies, in the way that it's wrapped around, LLMs. I mean, we still obviously augment around traditional OCR and computer vision systems. We augment around machine learning. So we are an AI accelerator, right? We use the right tool for the right time and for the right process and the right person. But what is like, so it's the deployment piece that I think really is going to create meaning, right? So again, thinking about where we are in this adoption curve, we chose the accelerator model to be able to say to big businesses, this can be a big, hairy, scary monster. Because of so much hype. Like, how do you measure what is important to do, what's not important to do? When you've got a lot of chat, right? You've got a lot of noise. Like, how do you find signal in that? And, the signal for me is always proof. You've got to prove that this thing is going to do what it says on the box. Yes, that's a pun. And it's going to do it smartly. But yeah, so we chose the accelerator model right now because we believe getting these use cases to production is where we're going to find the meaning and the value. Not in this, like the strategy is great, but even the people who are designing and delivering these strategies, and I guess and promises, right, haven't yet seen enough proof in the world, in the market, in terms of enterprise AI, in terms of business AI, to be able to say with absolute certainty, this is the thing that's definitely going to work in this way. Like, what we've already learned is, we do keep the promises that we make, because we can show you what it looks like in action. We can show you what that ROI looks like. We can show you how excited people get when they see what these capabilities are, right? Whether it's somebody working in their back office going, hang on, I don't have to do that anymore. That's nuts. Yeah. Like, I've been promised that this piece of work is going to be taken away from me for like 5 years, maybe even 10 years by my business leaders, but we haven't got that piece of work into IT yet to be able to change the systems. But we can now. So we go with rapid because we can. And we can do that with absolute confidence, that we can get AI workloads into production once we've deployed Smartboxx within 2 to 12 weeks. Wow. Which is exactly, it's nuts. I mean, some of these processes would have taken 18 months traditionally to figure out and to deploy. And the way we do that is we have spent quite a long time. Like, these are our learnings going out to you, right? Is we've spent a lot of time banging our heads against some walls, sometimes listening to the hype, but then also internally, through the development of Smartboxx, proving what works, right? Working with our clients, having those conversations as well about what is important and how is it important to fix, as well as the 20 years of experience we have delivering valuable IT solutions to our clients and to the market, right? I mean, this is what we do. We're really good at it. But with Smartboxx, I think we've really nailed the balance between speed and security, risk and governance, and meaningful implementation, right? So we are, the model, I think, is a good one for where we are in terms of AI and how it can be used in business. So yeah, by being able to deploy this Smartboxx within an enterprise infrastructure, for example, we've already taken away one friction point, which is risk and governance and data residency. So the data stays with you. The systems we connect to enable the engine to be valuable. You don't have to move it anywhere, right? So you're never leaving your own system. So we deploy in infrastructure. We deploy against your existing data and risk governance and compliance rules. So we've got all of that, right? Taken into consideration, and that doesn't have to change for you. So so that's the auditing part. So that also allows us to rapidly deploy. Then, like I said, we've got a lot of learnings that I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with someone in a South African bank, and what excited them was that they were asking our team questions about, hey, what we're thinking of doing it this way, and our team was able to say, actually, we've tried it, it doesn't work. I mean, that's months of development and investment that we've just taken care of in one conversation, because we've tried it, doesn't work as well as we thought it would. And this is the proof that we have, right? Alternatively, this is a case where we know it's worked because we've done it, and we've been working on connecting these different AI systems together, AI tools. We've worked on making sure that when we deploy, we're able to produce services and networking capabilities immediately. So it's not something currently, I'm sure like AI strategy and AI leaders are thinking like traditional IT system, I have to start here, then I have to like, put that in place, and I have to put that in place. So it's very anti-agile, but that's generally how systems are developed, piece by piece. We've already put all those pieces together, right? We've almost got a full puzzle that we can say to you, hey, this is what it looks like. This is almost the full picture. All we need from you is essentially a data source. So leave the data where it is, we'll fetch it, right? You don't have to like invest a lot of IT implementation work behind this, right? We don't need as much facilitation as a traditional IT system would, right? We get the data in, we say, okay, what is the use case that you want to deploy from our menu? We can switch on and switch off multiple different use cases in a workflow, so customized to you. And then where do we want us to send the result? Do you want us to build a UI for you that looks really cool, a brand new dashboard for your agents to use, or for you as a business leader to use? Or should we send it to our CRM, right? Should we send the result of this interaction or this data processing to Salesforce? Where would you like it to go? And we'll do that for you.
Yeah, and I think scaling is probably the next thing, because you look at large projects, it's always a challenge. Where do we start with it? How do you start with it? So one of the ways I know that we find a way in is to say, let's take a specific use case, focus on that use case, on proven technology, proven methodologies, a way to get it going, and then based upon the success of that, scale it out.
Yes.
Look at what else. If we could do this, what else can we do? So at this point, I just want to point out to you guys that we are taking some questions if you have. So if you want to post those, we've got somebody monitoring the session. So if you want to ask some questions, you can post it there, and if time permits, we'll respond back to it. I know I used the analogy of replacing an engine, which is probably in this case not great, considering what we're talking about with Smartboxx and what we do there, because we're not talking about displacing technology, because a lot of our clients are already on an AI journey. And you might think that to bring somebody else in with specific expertise and an accelerator to leverage would mean that we need to write those IT investments off, or the AI investments. Is that the case, or could we actually coexist and accelerate together?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Again, it's that big hairy monster kind of situation, right? It's AI is, like I said, it's flooded the system, right? It's a lot of noise, and it can seem intimidating. But I would actually say that the opposite is true, right? I think it's actually quite important to maintain the current team structures, the current ways of doing business. What we're able to do is actually layer intelligence over the top of existing business processes. So you can almost imagine, like, if you could, right? So you take your car and your engine. Yeah, of course you want to replace it over time because things wear down, right? Friction is a thing, but you also want to add a turbo to it. But in terms of making things, I guess reducing the surface area, not just of comfort for the teams and leaders, but also comfort in terms of risk. So we don't encourage implementations that have got high risk. Rather, we roll it out slowly. Like, let's position it at somewhere in time and work from there. So if I was able to say, okay, I'm on a long stretch of road, I'm going to switch on turbo. And I'm not going to use actual numbers, but if I could go much faster legally from this point to this destination, I would do it, right? I'm like flicking that switch, man, let's go. So has the road changed? Has the vehicle changed? Not really. Has the speed changed? Phenomenally. Like I said, with some of these use cases, like we're talking about a 2,000% increase. Don't do the kilometers per hour on that, okay? That could be a fighter jet. And maybe that's kind of where we're going. We're taking that ability to accelerate, to become rapid, meaningfully, and we're doing it in seconds instead of hours and even days and weeks to do one thing. So it's ability to switch on the turbo, i.e. the AI, where you need it, when you need it, and when you don't, where you're not sure, to be able to switch that turbo off and say, you know what, I'm more comfortable driving in a traditional legal fashion. Maybe this road is a bit bendy, so I shouldn't be driving on turbo. But we'll figure that out over time. But that's really, for me, the beauty is to be able to say, we can really implement it on again, small surface area, look at one use case, target one single process. And let's fix that, because quite frankly, you're going to get the value of it. right? You're going to get that ROI back in spades. And as I mentioned, not just once off, but your ROI actually increases over time with this technology because of the feedback loops we've built in, because of the fine tuning, because of human-in-the-loop type verification systems, right? Where you are getting faster and faster and faster. And once you've got it, once you're very fast there, guess what? You can look at other parts of your business and say, you know what? It's now time to fix that because we haven't done it in years, or we now have this new capability to do it, and again, relatively quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe we switched a little bit of gears around this now, and I want to ask you about some of the innovation and what is new in the AI space. What should we be looking out for? But against the backdrop of a conversation that I had with one of our colleagues maybe 2 weeks ago, where I, for one, said that I think there's a limit at which AI needs to take a step back and let human interaction take control again. And the example I cited at the time was in the healthcare, where a consultation from a doctor can potentially not be taken care of by an AI. And just to be pointed out a couple of seconds later that earlier in the year in China, they actually launched the digital or the agent hospital, where I think the numbers were 41 agent doctors and or 14 agent doctors and 41 nurses were actually doing diagnosing patients, formulating a care plan, doing prescriptions and all of that. So even now, I've found that the limits that I thought AI might have reached in terms of certain things are changing. And I think, you know, every morning you open up LinkedIn and go and look there, or you open up your favorite BizTech blog, you'll see that people are talking about innovation, and 90% of the time AI is mentioned in that as well. What are your thoughts about what should we be looking out for? How's this AI world changing? What is driving change? What is going to be new? What should we be looking out for?
Yeah, I want to say that's a super tough one, especially for someone that consumes an incredibly large amount of AI news. Like, things are changing on an almost daily basis. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the bet is long-term right now. I think the bet right now is learning, and learning quickly, right? To keep your competitive advantage, enrich those customer interactions, enrich your team's experiences and your KPIs. Right? So yeah, I remember you telling me about this doctor thing and being quite nervous about whether an AI is going to correctly diagnose and all of those good things. Look, I do think that ultimately there's a right way to manage risk, right? I would not promote, and I don't think, from a risk profile perspective, we should be giving everything to AI. I don't think that makes sense. Also, and my real honest answer, and I think it does surprise some of my mates and my colleagues, is that we don't know. We are so early that we don't know yet exactly how this is going to look in the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months. And the reason we don't have that perfect picture is not just the rapidly changing technology. I would almost feel like that's more for the nerdy people, but really about how we're going to know how business changes when it changes. And I would like us to be able to be masters of our own destiny, to be able to work with partners that understand the technology really well, that understand the risk, the risk pieces, the security pieces, the data pieces really well, to be able to manage a rollout that looks really healthy, that's robust, that's meaningful, without saying, you know what, let's shoot the lights out, let's change the game, let's change everything. I mean, I know there are business leaders, I've spoken to them, and some C-suite executives that are like so into AI, and look, I am too, but I'm also aware that, there is I'll put a bet on this. There's a right and the wrong way to do things. If you're going to change everything, it's not just the technology that we want to prove in a particularly healthy cadence. But we also don't want to tell teams, hey, I'm going to say that you won't have a job. We don't know that, to be sure, right? Yes, there's an ambition, I think, within the tech space, and maybe there are people that know more than I do, right? There are people that know more than I do, but at least in the short term, right? We're going to be able to deploy and learn, and deploy and learn. And then we're going to set a path for an organization or a team to say, this is now the direction we go in. This is how we augment. This is what we automate. This is how we move resources around. Because, I mean, for me, one of the great outcomes that we can have here, if we want to, is to create a whole bunch of really good SMEs that can make incredibly strategic decisions in our businesses, instead of deciding how, or figuring out how to handle another call where they have to log a claim, where all they're doing is data capture. I mean, is that deriving value for the individual, the team member, and for the customer? In a lot of cases, guys, like, real talk, no one's necessarily happy, but it is necessary. So, how do we look at those type of outcomes, and then we learn? Okay, once we fix the problem, how do we want our organization to now look? Do we want to build people into more of an SME role? Because efficiency doesn't always mean getting rid of people. And I think one of the things that has been frustrating, at least in my experience when dealing with large teams, for example, contact centers, is a lot of people are not really enjoying what they do because they kind of have an instinct that it could be done by an IT system, right, already, but the investment hasn't been there. Yeah. Literally the capital investment to change systems. Also, obviously, there's a risk aversion as well, which I totally understand. But there's ways to maneuver that with the power we now have with this technology. So do we know exactly for sure? Maybe we can say yes, but maybe I can also promote the idea that maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should be active decision makers at each point of this journey so we know that what is being deployed is working for us, not just for the technology itself.
So maybe a question for the techies in the audience, which I'd like to hear your opinion on. This race about who's got the best large language model out there, and it seems to be a polarized race between players in the United States and players in the East. What is this all about? What is driving that?
Okay, so look, I do think there is a winner takes all kind of mindset around this, and that makes sense because this is a super transformational technology that can be deployed literally anywhere. Like when you're talking about telco systems, you're looking at network observation, you're looking at custom contact center interactions. We're already like switching lights on and off, right? We can do that proactively. We can deploy this technology anywhere. So there's that. That's the kind of what is really very compelling for I think companies like OpenAI that have gone through a long investment cycle. Even Google with DeepMind, or an even longer investment cycle, knowing where this can land. So there's that mentality of being at the forefront, but also getting to a higher level of use, so that thing that you're building becomes sticky, right? So that's where, like the early adopter thing. I mean, the amount of customers that ChatGPT was able to generate in a very short amount of time. We think we're talking about 400 million people that signed up in a very short amount of time. Unheard of, like super unreal. So yeah, there's a lot at stake here. That in the back end of that, like anything that's great and good, it can be expensive. Yeah. So the compute needed for producing AI outcomes can be astronomical. I mean, I know there's people fluttering around with whether it costs a liter of water or a teaspoon of water to ask ChatGPT a question rather than Google. I do think those trends will decrease over time. It will become cheaper, and that's where the Chinese model providers came in with DeepSeek, and there's quite a few others, like Manus and things. But what they were able to do was fix the computation piece, so it became cheaper. That's basically it. By changing the way the transformers work, changing kind of the back-end architecture of how AI is generating or inferring information and outputs. I think that's where there's a lot of value to be gained by making that a lot cheaper and a lot less impactful, I guess, from an environmental perspective. I mean, we also don't want to live in a world where, across every next corner is a data center running AI models for your community, That would be weird. So there is a need to depress cost. I mean, these guys also have so much money on the table that they can utilize on a weekly, monthly basis to cover some of these costs. So there's a cost factor, there's the winner take all factor, and I also think people just like to be competitive. I want to be the best, and we know that Meta recently got in a bit of trouble because they essentially trained one of their models to become good at taking the tests that decide which is the best model, as opposed to being absolutely useful. So, it also is about incentives. I also kind of, in a way, weirdly enjoy sitting back and observing these guys duke it out, because it's not my play right now. Yeah. I use the models. I select the model that works best for me. Knowing, also understanding data privacy and training concerns and things like that, which I have. But they're going to duke it out. The world is going to look different. In a sense of which models come through. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of predictions that we can go through, but I do think we're just at the start. I think it's just good to remember that. Yeah. That we're at the start. These models are general purpose. They're not specifically designed for particular verticals, for particular use cases. That's necessary to create a really high level of adoption upfront. It must be able to do as much as possible. You must be able to ask it to generate images. And I mean, yes, I agree. Thank you, ChatGPT. That is my dream home, totally. And being able to, just, create, documents that with my my intellectual IP, that's my prompt, and any other supporting information I have, and making that go fast, that's nice.
Sure.
The landscape will change. It probably is going to become cheaper. It's probably going to become more personalized in terms of, especially with big businesses, not wanting to send their data out. I know the model, people say that they don't use it, but there's other questions to be asked. I do think we'll probably look at local model deployment going forward, once, also, leveraging the work that's already been done. I mean, there's billions of dollars that's been invested in these technologies in the last few years alone. Yeah. Right? So my thing would be, how do we leverage that going forward? How does it become an important, easy to use, and cheap-ish to run implementation for me? Yeah. Right? Does it land well in my pocket? Does it land well in my capability and my skill set? Does it land well in my needs? And if it doesn't, then we're going to have to look at that, right? But as far as it does, honestly, they must duke it out, and they must make things better and cheaper for us. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you and I had a conversation prior to this session about breadth of use versus depth in expertise. And I think AI is one of those that you actually ideally would want both. But you could, depending on what your use case is, opt for either the breadth of usage, so rolling it out across the enterprise to address specific deficiencies or areas of improvement across the enterprise, or you could pick a vertical solution and say, well, we want to go into the deep understanding and knowledge around that to build that out. And I think a lot of enterprises are currently still stuck at that. Where do we actually take this? I'll go back to my opening statement around everybody knows they need to do something with AI. They just don't always know what to do. And I think it's part of what we need to do is demystify that. And not because we are bankers. We are not bankers. We don't do banking. It's not in what we do. They will always be the subject matter experts around it. But what we do know is we understand data. We understand processes. We understand how we can actually modernize and improve those. So we need to bring that with that knowledge with the project. So I think I need to check on time to make sure we don't overrun, and I need to check if we've still got some questions. I'm not sure there are no questions at this stage. So I think we probably need to start wrapping up. I want to ask, Lisle, from your side, maybe some pearls of wisdom around how do we, again, start an AI project? And I'm thinking around people aspire to have that. They think they know it. They must do something around it. How do we get that going in an organization?
I think, look, again, I'll go back to the point that for me, it is important to get started. Get started now. The longer you delay, not just an implementation, but something in production, the longer it's going to take to derive those learnings, which is actually where the value is, where the gold is. It's like, oh man, I know how this works, right? I know what works for who, because my whole team must understand it. Yeah?
Sorry, I want to ask you a question. Is that the problem statement, understanding that problem statement potentially?
Totally. Yeah, know what you want, right? Like I said, you as a business leader, I mean, I know I speak to business leaders quite often, and if I walk in, I just say, guys, what's bothering you? Like, what's really sore right now? Like literal pain points, because there are literal pain points in every organization. And, speaking to, one leader talking about having, their team, they've got a limited team, limited resources within that team, having to process thousands of pieces of information per day, not knowing whether that piece of information is valuable or not. They only know after the fact, right? So being able to put in a system in that context to say, you know what, you're a small team that is super stressed and they're working overtime and stuff like that, and no, you can't get more headcount, right? So you kind of felt, she felt quite stuck, not being able to deliver what her team needs, and also having to still manage her own KPIs, right, for her area. And then being able to say, you know what, if we deploy a Smartboxx solution, and we get that solution to just look through these thousands and thousands of alerts, and identify which ones need attention, right? So taking away that manual process, going straight to value. Her team can now actually start to increase their output with one simple, fixing one problem, So it's almost like the leaky boat thing as well, right? Where's the leak in the boat? Like we're all like covering it up. We've got gaffer tape. We've got our hands. You know, we're trying to stop that one thing, that one inefficient process from having too much of an impact on everything else, like our SLAs, like, you know, how long it takes to get back to a customer, because we've got this huge volume of manual stuff that we have to do. So we fix that. We fix it properly, and then we're going to see where else we need to, you know, what else we need to go through. Like, you know, an engine needs maintenance, right? So does your business, right? So does not just your teams and your IT systems, but as a whole. So now we say, okay, cool, well, we fixed that hole. Okay, where else is there a bit of a leak now? And let's go move to that. So it's, I think, you know, success, and I think in life and business is about focus.
Yeah.
And the more narrow the focus is, the more laser pointed the focus, quite frankly, the easier and faster it is to fix it.
Yeah.
So we want to keep leaders focused on those problems. We come in and we can accelerate that solving that problem.
Yeah.
And then giving the opportunity to focus on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, but in a time frame that, I mean, honestly, is much faster than anything you've seen before.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of what creates a little bit of internal friction. You use friction a lot, and frustration, I'll add to that, is the fact that I think, it's not a one size fits all, firstly. And the second thing is also that it's not ever done. You know, you start with it, and AI is a technology that lends itself to being in there for a long time, delivering performance the whole time. So you need to find the way in. You know, I always talk about the thin side of the wedge, and once you're in, we start opening it up. But we've seen it in our own client base, where we start with something that they're struggling with, and as soon as we solve that, they start seeing it work in other areas of the business. The challenge with that is, especially in large enterprise, it's very much still siloed. And we're solving a specific problem for a specific silo, when if you actually unpack that problem, it's the same problem they're experiencing in other silos. They just think it's unique, you know. You talk to a client and they say, well, we can't use plug and play. And I always ask why. And they say, because our business is so unique. And I go, not really. You do exactly what your competitor does, and we see it there. But it is one of those where I think AI has a place for the future. I think one needs to start looking at that. The Gartners of the world will talk about the hype cycle. So if you track where AI is, and I always compare that, to big data. I remember when big data came out, everybody was saying this is going to revolutionize the world, the way people do business and what we know about people. And for me personally, it's fizzled out a little bit.
Well, I mean, sorry, in that case, I think what kind of happened with big data was in order to solve a problem, you need to stop doing the things that created it in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
So if you produced a problem by, in terms of not being able to produce a data lake of all your company information, that was the end result of the business processes that you already have, that have been in place for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's one of those things to consider, is what needs to actually change,
yes,
right,
yes.
for things to become more efficient. I mean, this, it might be that we produce AI solutions that are super, super powerful and valuable, but over time, we do need to look at how we work.
Yeah.
With our teams and our customers.
And I think the business application thereof is one thing, proving a technology can do something. So what? What do you do with that? What is it that you now know that you've learned that you didn't have before? What are you going to do with that? And I think that's the real ROI and investment question that needs to get answered. If I can do that, what else can I do? And then, you start building it out.
Yeah, and to do that, it starts with, much to your point about, do I say AI needs to be across my organization or deeply vertical? And the thing is, do you definitely concentrate on what you know, and don't try and solve all your problems at once. So literality is great. If you are doing the following, that is asking the right questions, right? Like, that's also the idea. You might think you know for sure what the problem is, again, that leaky boat scenario, but implement something on a small scale as quickly as you can, again, safely, within governance, etc., and see what happens next. The feedback loop is so valuable, and shortening that feedback loop is where we think you can not only derive value, but accelerate value really, really quickly as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Lisle. Guys, we've run out of time almost, but it would be remiss of me to offer you guys an opportunity to engage us. So if you want to take us up on an offer to engage you around what we do, how we do it, please send us an email. You can send it to info@retrorabbit.co.za. You can reach out to Lisle on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'd love to come and talk to you about your specific use case. We'd love to impart with you some of our knowledge around how we solve problems and real business problems. So not technology problems. Yes, we use technology. It's an enabler, but we focus on solving business problems. And I think more importantly, future-proofing business, because right now that seems to be the biggest challenge out there is how do I keep up with innovation? How do I use innovation? And how do I future-proof my business? So we'd love to talk to you guys about that. Reach out. Thank you for your time. I think I might just check if any late questions. No questions. I'm going to give you back just some comments. Okay, thank you. I hope they're all good. I hope they're all aimed at Lisle, because I'm not the subject matter expert here. But thank you for your time, and we look forward to engaging you all.
Yep, thanks very much. Thanks, Tian. And yeah, thank you. I think, look, this is a very exciting time for business. I think it's a really exciting time to get started with, with partners that really understand deeply what your problem is, what your problem space is, and yeah, being able to work together to solve those. So yeah, definitely reach out. We've got some really cool use cases that we can show, and I know that every time I show people these demos, they really get a surprise. So this is definitely not an environment where we can show you these capabilities, but I think that's also a really, really good starting point. Is just like see what's possible, dream with us a little bit, and let us then make those dreams come true within your business.
Thanks, Lisa.